Hello, and welcome to Life Matters, the program where we engage life issues with critical thinking and a biblical worldview. Life Matters is an educational outreach resource of Assure Women's Center in Omaha, Nebraska. We're honored to host a variety of guests within the pro-life movement, each bringing their own unique perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds. The views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Life Matters, Assure Women's Center, or our affiliates. Our goal is to foster open, thoughtful dialogue around life-affirming issues and equip listeners to stand for life.
Welcome to Life Matters. I'm Toni Clarke, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. My guests are sisters, best friends, and business partners, Renee Eames and Mary Crosby, also known as the Lenz Sisters. They are the heart behind Bluebird Refuge, a ministry that combines faith, hope, joy, and even a good cup of tea to bring encouragement to women walking through difficult seasons. Today, we'll hear their story, the inspiration behind Bluebird Refuge, and how we can all join in this movement of hope. Renee and Mary, thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you who may not know you yet, could you each introduce yourselves and share a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us. We're just so pleased to be here with you today, Toni. My name is Renee, and I am an Omaha native, but now I live in West Point, Nebraska, which is about an hour outside of Omaha, with my husband and two high school students. My kids are the joy of my life, for sure, and we really enjoy being part of this small community here in West Point. My history is I work at ConAgra brand now, I guess, is what they call it, for about 15 years. And then I homeschooled my kids for about 7 years. And then after they went back to school, I just thought, well, how else can I give back now that I'm in a different stage of life? And Bluebird Refuge kind of came to light. And I also act as an evangelization coordinator for our church and our church community.
Oh, cool. We'll get into Bluebird a little bit more, but that's cool. We were sharing a little bit before we started recording about kids, and I have two girls as well, and I think I told them I'm kind of done, but I don't think I'll ever really be done.
Never done. What a gift, right?
Never done. My 22-year-old is still home.
Yep. It's such a joy to witness, have that first row seat in their growth and development.
Yeah. What about you, Mary?
Yeah, well, after, I guess I should start. I am married to Justin, and we have 4 kids. It's interesting when you're on this path of motherhood and you're like, this is my vocation. This is what we're being called to do. And it is odd when they get past this younger little stages and we're finally at this, I'm not a young mom anymore. And so it's the embracing of all of these new stages in life, and it's so joyful, every single one of it. And we've been quite on a journey. I too, obviously, I grew up in Omaha, and now we're in South Carolina. We've lived in several states and taking through my husband's work, but career-wise, I have been in nonprofits pretty much since I've been out of school, nearly 2 decades now. And in the last more so 15 years, has been very focused on pro-life, pro-women work. And that has all been mostly concentrated out of the Omaha area. And so hopefully, maybe like a lot of people, I got started in volunteer work. Yeah. So Renee and I, we were able to do some of the 40 Days for Life when it first got started, bringing some of the branding to Omaha and to help coordinate this effort, which really resonated with me, a peaceful, prayerful movement to support women and motherhood. And then after that, I was at Bethlehem House for almost 4 years, the maternity home for women. and then transitioned to a part-time role in essential pregnancy services. So working on mostly branding and communications in those last 8 years.
Well, good. Thank you guys for that. I'm excited to have you on the show and just to get to learn a little bit more about you. So you ladies describe yourselves as sisters, best friends, and business partners. So how has that unique relationship shaped the work you're doing now? Because everybody can't work with family.
That is very true. And Mary and I are very different personalities as well. And we have, different strengths. But I think what really molds us together are our values and the foundation that we have within our family and the dedication we have to loving one another. And so I think that, that our relationship with Christ and knowing that, that is supreme, and who Mary is and who I am as a person comes first and foremost beyond everything. And so, yeah, it absolutely does grow and stretch us. I don't think either one of us would say that we haven't grown a lot over the last few years since we've been working closely together with this. And I think the other beautiful thing is when our kiddos were little, we were both in Omaha together. And so our kids had a lot of time together. And yet the two of us, we would see each other almost every day, but I don't feel like we had as much time together because we were both had careers and jobs and little babies. So it's been neat to be able to have that special relationship with one another now, especially as we have some distance between us, but now we have, an extra reason, not just because we're sisters and sharing our lives together, but that we're sharing this mission together as well.
So let's go back a little bit. You both grew up here in Nebraska, and so what was it like growing up with those heartland values that you talk about: faith, friendliness, resilience, and service? What was that like growing up in Nebraska?
I think Omaha is, I don't know if it's unique. I feel like Omaha is a very unique place for the friendliness and the way people stretch to do and go the extra mile for others. And I've witnessed that not only in my childhood, but also professionally. Just that when I say heartland values, is people understand what is the purpose in life. To know, love, and serve God. And the way we serve God is to be present for one another. And I see that in our childhood, we were exemplified that not only in the home, but in our faith community, in our school communities. Where we went, people were there serving and loving one another. And I think that is something that has changed and molded. I shouldn't say changed. It molded who I am, who Renee is, and helped launch our lives in this trajectory of service and love. Because when you're truly loving somebody, you are seeing opportunities to be there for them and to make opportunities happen, because relationships and people take time, and it's a great responsibility.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I didn't grow up in Nebraska. I'm actually from Chicago, but I joined the military, and so I lived a little bit of everywhere. And I would agree with you. I've been in Nebraska now for 28, almost 29 years. And there's just something different about Nebraska. It took me a long time. I still say I'm from Chicago, even though I haven't lived in Chicago in 40 years. But there's just something about, Nebraska that I love. And I guess maybe it is those heartland values or just the friendliness. Nebraska is it is the good life. It has been the good life for us. So it's not perfect, but it's good. So it's good. So you guys mentioned volunteering early. Where did you get that volunteer spirit from? Did you see your parents volunteer, or where did that come from?
Well, yes, our parents, for sure. They live not only a life of service to other people, but I would say, a life of loving others. They don't do anything halfway, if and I really don't feel that they look at anything that they do for others as helping somebody, as more of walking alongside somebody and accompanying people. And we witnessed that from as far back as I can remember. There's always somebody showing up at our door, our mom and dad's door to, talk to them, or the phone was ringing. And like I said, they're not just people that they were, helping, but they're people that were our friends and became, a part of our family. And specifically, one thing that I really remember them doing is we cook in foster babies. And so we had babies in our home fairly regularly for several years while the mother was making her decision of whether or not she would parent her child or place her child for adoption. And that was such a beautiful experience and example for us. And then I also really remember there was a refugee family from Laos. And I remember them coming and they babysat us. We babysat their kids. Mom and dad to help them learn how to drive, get a car, have a job, and our lives were just really integrated for that. For all the time that they were in Omaha, they eventually ended up moving to Ohio. And those are just a couple of examples. But anybody that the Holy Spirit put in mom and dad's life, and still today, even as they are in their late 70s, they just exemplify walking with other folks.
So that's sweet. I think sometimes we underestimate the value of our volunteerism and really what it shows our kids. If your parents had not seen, and I say volunteerism, but just service in general. If you guys had not seen your parents do that, maybe you would not have as well. And so I think there's something to be said about serving others and watching, doing life with your kids as they watch you serve others, and they learn that as well. So kudos to your parents. Tell them thank you.
Yes, it definitely leaves a legacy for other generations. And, and even a lot of their work wasn't necessarily, some was, but most of it wasn't even like formal service work, but it's really just like who has been placed in my life that I can walk with.
Yeah, absolutely. You just made me think about growing up. My mother used to pick up ladies and take them to church. And I'm from Chicago. These ladies lived on the other side of town. And in my mind, I'm like, why do we have to pick? We're like 2 minutes from church. We had to drive 20 minutes to pick somebody up. And then I find myself doing the same thing as an adult. It's just like it just becomes a part of you. It's just, just those examples are just really, really good. And after a while, I actually loved it because then I became the driver. She was the passenger. So I'm like, we got to pick up so-and-so. We pick them up and, they give us 50 cents for gas.
Yeah, but those are beautiful stories and memories, aren't they?
They absolutely are. And 50 cents was enough to buy a couple of hamburgers from White Castle. So I think I'm dating myself here, but.
Life Matters is the program where we engage life issues with critical thinking and a biblical worldview, and it is a ministry of Assure Women's Center. We're expanding our ministry to reach women who speak only Spanish, and we need your help right now. If you've ever felt God nudging you to serve with us and you speak Spanish, this is your moment to step in. We're hiring for multiple roles and actively looking for bilingual volunteer advocates. Lives are at stake, and we can't do this without you. Visit firststeptolife.com today to learn more and get involved. That's firststeptolife.com.
All right. So in 2023, during the 40 days leading up to Easter, you said something stirred your hearts to take a leap of faith. What happened during that season?
Well, it was really a unique time. I would say that it just felt like the Lord was just really close to both Mary and I, especially during that time. And just it was a time of ideas where things just flowed, and we would talk for hours a day and text back and forth. So we spent hours a day together, either talking on the phone or texting back and forth, which really blows my mind because now, even as we have this like business that we're trying to have time together, we have such a difficult time finding the time to be together to do the thing. So it really was a unique gift, and I think it was a really a great time for us to grow closer together and dream big and just share our hearts with each other.
Oh, sweet.
So I think it was really beautiful when Renee first approached me. I remember it was after Ash Wednesday, and she had just gone to an EPS Breakfast for Life several months earlier. And really, it was just born of her desire to say, what can I do right in my community? How can I uplift women in motherhood and the families who are struggling, understanding the idea that maternity deserts exist, and where she lives, women have to go the distance to get support. And so, that goes for all of the surrounding areas around West Point, Nebraska. And that is not a unique thing. I believe that if a lot of people are listening and they live in Omaha, they're like, what are you talking about? There's tons of resources for women. Well, again, Omaha is a fairly unique place. Omaha is incredibly philanthropic. There are services upon services upon services. It's just a matter of, do women hear the message, and are they getting plugged into the right service that is for them at the right time in their life? So that's a different, unique situation. Whereas where people see that they might have to go an hour for help, it just seems that there are barriers upon barriers to choosing life or to understanding how they're going to have one more mouth to feed. And so hearing Renee's heart and her desire was really the beginning and the catalyst in that moment of start.
Yeah, that's good. You talk about maternity deserts. I think even at Assure, those are things that we think about as far as, I mean, even just the beginning of life when that young lady is making a decision. Everybody doesn't have a pregnancy center in the area. Everybody doesn't have an abortion clinic in the area. But guess what? That abortion pill is so available, it makes it, all you have to do is order. And that's something that Assure, as well as EPS, all of the pregnancy centers across the nation are trying to deal with. How do we reach that young lady who is 2 hours from a pregnancy center and that can't get the help that she needs, but can call and get an abortion pill delivered in her mailbox? And so I think that's so important that people, realize that we need to figure out a way to reach those girls that are not necessarily within arm's reach of a pregnancy center.
Oh, and you and I, we can really understand that it takes trauma that happened in a specific facility and puts it right in someone's home. And we can understand the post-abortive fallout, but people who are looking for a quick solution aren't necessarily thinking about what's the next. They're looking at, this is my problem that I can resolve quickly right now, and it can be in my home. But we see that it's going to cause trauma right where they live. And that is probably the most tragic thing that weighs on my heart.
Yeah, mine too. And I just don't think sometimes I think we neglect to remember that or think about it. That young lady is going back to the place that she perhaps saw her unborn baby every day. And you're right, she's not going to a facility. She's going to her bathroom. And it's just, it's hard. The trauma is huge. And we're starting to see people, I'm going to say regretting, for lack of a better term, their decision a lot sooner. Back in the day, it took 10, 15 years before someone realizes that abortion that I had is affecting me. But people are seeing it a lot sooner now because they're the ones that are administering that pill to themselves, and they're actually seeing it for themselves by themselves. It's very, very, very traumatic. Very traumatic. Wow. Looking back now, what was the scariest part of saying yes to this new calling, and what gave you the courage to move forward?
So it's funny because when Renee called me initially, I was, looking at where my family was and what I'm looking at in the future. And I think the silliness about this is, for about 20 years, I've been calling my sister up or texting her like, I have a new idea. And she'd be like, all right, give it to me. And it was more of, I'm listening to you, and then we're going to move on because this is how it usually goes. So I would bank all of these ideas. And it's so funny because as I look back now, a lot of these ideas that I banked in a little box, because I'm a big pictured, big dreamer, God had planted little seeds along the way. And even aspects of what we're doing now, I was already doing in some capacity in my pro-life efforts in Omaha, Nebraska. So initially when Renee called, I was like, how can I help you? How can I support you in what you want to do in West Point, Nebraska? Because honestly, I'm tired of working out of state from afar. And the reason is not because of the work, but because I am a strong advocate for blooming where you are planted. The Lord has given you a place and a community, and to make a difference right where you live, get plugged into your church, get plugged into the nonprofits that are there, volunteering, show up, be present.
Yeah.
And when I looked at more work that didn't get my family involved, because I think that it is so important, as Renee shared about our parents, having that example of your parents being out in the community and doing something and not just sitting behind a computer and jamming away at the computer and having these ideas go out into the world, but not actively being out there. So I continue to say, how can I support you for about 3 weeks until I couldn't deny any longer that the Lord really was calling us to do something greater than ourselves, to stretch and to grow. Like Renee said, we are very different people. We think very differently. We communicate very differently, and it is a stretch. And that is, it's beautiful and challenging and hard and great and celebratory at different times. And so in the seasons that we go through as sisters, now we're going to go at it as business partners. And to say yes to this specific message, yes, it is scary because entrepreneurialism, like to be to start something new. Well, one, there's you have to tackle your pride.
Yeah.
Like, how is this going to catch? Are people going to think that we're cuckoo? Like, this is some of the things that we're doing have never been done before. And to put a new idea out there, you have to overcome the concern about all the other thoughts and feelings that people have about who you are and what you are doing. And Renee is always very good about calling us back to and pointing us back to the attention of Jesus.
Good.
And if we are focused on Jesus and what he's calling us to do in our lives, everything else just melts away, because what God is asking you to do is the number one priority. Your obedience to him is our pathway to heaven. That is our pathway to sainthood. Like I love that God is every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future. And in understanding like who we are, and that God is working with us in all of our insecurities, in all of in our questioning of ourselves, that he can mold and work with us and move us to this beautiful place where we are just focused on service to him. And I think that is the most beautiful part of any dream that is implemented and seeing the fruit of it. Because the fruit of it is not necessarily, like Renee often reminds us, is not the success of what we're going to see, but what God is doing. And we had this experience at Bethlehem House too. Somebody I worked with, she said, our job is to plant the seeds, and what God does with it is none of our business.
Yeah.
And that is something that's so beautiful that I've continued to carry with me.
Yeah, that's good. The Bible says one plants, one waters, but God gives the increase. We just need to plant and do what he asks us to do. And then he takes care of the rest. That's good. So why the Bluebird? What drew you to that particular symbol of hope and joy?
Well, that was all a discovery process. As of finding the Bluebird and learning about her story was really just a complete discovery, really. So when I first thought about like what this might look like, and we think about our our sisters and daughters and friends who may be struggling with uncertainty, and I thought of the mother of Jesus and how much uncertainty there was in her yes, and how that left so many things to the unknown. She didn't know what was going to happen with Joseph. And then after Joseph said he was going to stand by her side, she had to go to Egypt and couldn't even raise her, her child with her family like everyone was accustomed to. I mean, much less giving birth in, in a stable for animals, so there was so much uncertainty to that. And so I just look at her example of like that perseverance and sticking with sticking with what the Lord called her to do and her yes and walking forward. And she is the ultimate symbol of hope and joy. And that's what the Bluebird represents, is hope and joy.
Please join us next week for part 2 of our interview with Mary Crosby and Renee Eames. Life Matters is an educational outreach resource of Assure Women's Center in Omaha, Nebraska. To learn more about the ministry of Assure, visit firststeptolife.com. That's firststeptolife.com. There you can learn about the many services we provide, including how we come alongside abortion-minded mothers and empower women to choose life for her and her baby, as well as find our most current broadcasts and all of our past episodes. We're expanding our ministry to reach women who speak only Spanish, and we need your help right now. If you've ever felt God nudging you to serve with us and you speak Spanish, this is your moment to step in. We're hiring for multiple roles and actively looking for bilingual volunteer advocates. Lives are at stake, and we can't do this without you. Visit firststeptolife.com today to learn more and get involved. That's firststeptolife.com.